Press play to uncover the sinister secrets of 17 haunting nights you're forbidden to know. Jess clenched the steering wheel as she parked outside their little house. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows that clawed at her feet like grasping hands. The neighborhood, once vibrant, now felt like a ghost town, silent, watchful. She sighed, running a hand through her tangled hair, the fatigue of long shifts at the diner weighing her down. Max would be asleep by now, but the unease that had filled their home left her wide awake. She shrugged off the sensation, stepping onto the porch where an icy breeze whispered secrets in her ear. Something caught her eye, a series of strange symbols etched into the ground near their front door. Jagged lines intertwined like dark whispers, and dread twisted her stomach. Teenagers looking for trouble, she thought, but her heart raced as she traced the shapes. These felt wrong, sinister. Let it go, she muttered under her breath. But that gnawing feeling stirred again, amplified when she stumbled across a group of neighbors in the park earlier, their hushed tones sending shivers skittering down her spine. They glanced over, pity mingled with fear in their eyes, a reaction that should have made her feel supported but instead filled her with dread. As she turned the key in the lock, a shiver crawled up her spine. The darkness loomed inside, tightening around her. She flung open the door, expecting warmth, but found only cold silence. "Max," she called, her voice breaking the suffocating quiet. She felt a flicker of relief when she saw his sleeping form on the couch, his slight frame rising and falling rhythmically. Yet even that comfort felt misplaced, the air thick with an unseen weight. The following evening brought more mystery. An unmarked package rested on the doorstep. Tension coiled in her gut as she scrutinized it. It was barely taped shut. She opened it with shaking hands, revealing an old cassette tape labeled 17 Haunting Nights. What fresh horror was this? Her heart pounded as she debated whether to press play, feeling the gaze of the neighbors lingering like a storm cloud. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the tape hissed to life, Jess felt her skin crawl. The distorted echoes of children's laughter twisted into agonizing cries, chilling tales of dark rituals whispered through the speakers. Her heartbeat thundered, the memories of the neighborhood's whispered secrets igniting a flood of terror. Images of a once trusted community member, now a mere shadow, flashed in her mind, filthy hands marking homes, deceit so deep it turned friends into enemies. Max stirred, breaking her trance. A fleeting moment of hope flickered in Jess. Perhaps this was just a bad dream. But as her mind raced through the unwinding terror, she knew it was deeper and more twisted than that. A longing to protect engulfed her. Max deserved warmth and safety, not this suffocating miasma of fear. Just as she finally felt like she pieced together some form of the truth, a knock echoed through their home, rattling her from her thoughts. The color drained from her face as she held her breath, staring at the door. Would it be the person she once knew? Or something horrific that had wormed its way into their lives, something unfathomable lurking just beyond the threshold? The knock echoed again, louder this time, sending a wave of panic crashing over Jess. Who could it be? In her mind, she rehearsed the worst scenarios, an errant neighbor, a friend turned traitor, or something darker, more sinister lurking in the shadows. The tape continued its haunting melody, childlike whispers morphing into pleading cries for help, a desperate sound echoing from the depths of her nightmares. "Max! Wake up!" she hissed, shaking him awake, her breath quickening as adrenaline coursed through her veins. His eyes fluttered open, confusion clouding his expression. "What's wrong?" he murmured, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "Someone's at the door," she whispered. The knock came again, more insistent, vibrating through the walls like a warning bell. Max blinked sleepily for a second, but then the urgency flashed in his eyes. He could sense it too. Fear hung between them like thick fog. Jess felt her heartbeat echoing in her ears, drowning out the sinister laughter from the tape, a melody lulling her into a suffocating state of dread. Just wait here," she said, inching toward the door. Each step felt as if she were walking deeper into a pit of despair. She took a moment, pulling her trembling hands back as the memories of that strange package flooded her mind, those symbols, the whispers, and now this knock. As she reached for the doorknob, the air turned cold, a bone-chilling gust slicing through her like icy fingers. She hesitated, the intuition deep inside screaming at her. Something about the knock felt wrong, too precise, too patient. It was as if whatever stood on the other side was biding its time, playing a game. "Do you want me to open it?" Max whispered, his voice threading through the tension, but Jess shook her head. "No. Just hold tight." She glanced back at him, his face pale under the dim light. She could sense his heart racing, matching her own. With a deep, shaky breath, she resolved to confront her fears. "Who is it?" she demanded, her voice trembling but pulling strength from the darkness around her. Silence, then, soft, almost mournful, a voice answered, "Let me in, Jess. You need to hear this." Her heart sank. "Who are you?" "It's a matter of life and death. Max must know the truth." Her breath hitched. How could they know Max's name? The urgency of those words twisted in her gut, a haunted echo that felt dangerously familiar. Suddenly, fear turned to rage. It was clearly a trick, some cruel form of manipulation. "Go away!" she shouted, her instincts kicking into overdrive. Max stood, wide-eyed, looking to her for an answer. "Jess," he said, concern lacing his voice, but then the voice on the other side shifted, baring its teeth like a predator ready to pounce. "You don't understand, Jess. You're in danger. We're all in danger. They're coming for you." "What do you mean, they?" she retorted, her hands shaking against the door. A loud thump resonated through the door, rattling the frame. The sudden sound sent her heart rocketing into her throat. Max grasped her arm, panic flickering in his eyes. There was a pause, and then the voice grew sharper, more chilling. "The tape will show you everything, you just have to press play." As Jess stumbled back, the weight of dread pushed her shoulders down. The tape sputtered, echoes of chilling laughter reverberated around the room, as if mocking her very existence, and the knock resonated once more. Max's eyes darted to her face, pleading for answers. She grabbed his hand tightly. A decision loomed over her, a choice that could change everything, but before she could think, the door shuddered again, more violently this time, twisting on its hinges. The dread thickened as a voice, now distorted and sinister, warned, "Time's running out, Jess." The darkness unfurled, and for the first time, she felt its true weight, an inescapable fog closing in. What darkness awaited her on the other side? The door rattled again, and Jess's heart leapt into her throat. She could almost feel the chilling breath of whatever lurked beyond, as if it were waiting for the moment she would falter, waiting to slip into her world. "Jess, we can't stay here," Max urged, his voice tight with panic. "We need to hide." "Hide? From what?" Jess snapped, her fear boiling over. The tape continued whispering, the laughter growing louder, blending with the knocking that now felt like an urgent countdown. She glanced at the antique recorder, its red light blinking ominously, almost alive. Something deep within her forced her to grasp the tape's significance. What was she scared of? The tape or whatever was behind the door? "Listen to me," Max said, stepping closer. His eyes were wide, reflecting the dread creeping across Jess's mind. "If we have to choose between what's out there or that tape, I don't want to find out what happens if we knock." Before she could respond, the door thudded again, harder this time. Splintering wood obscured their view of whatever loomed outside. A muffled voice filtered through, drowning out the laughter, choked with desperation. "You don't know what you're dealing with." Every muscle in Jess's body tightened, the fear wrapping around her like chains. That voice was different from the one that had called her name. This sounded urgent, pleading. "Jess! Let me in. I swear I can help you. She felt herself wavering. Help? How can I trust you? Because they know you. They've always known. The voice cried out, a mixture of sorrow and panic spilling through the door. The memories of the strange package flashed in her mind, the symbols and whispers sharpening until they cut deep into her thoughts. She gripped the doorknob tightly, hesitation clawing at her insides. What if this was just another trick, another twisted game? Jess! Max shouted, panic seeping into his voice, snapping her back. We need to do something. We can't just stand here. Then, the tape burbled again, its whispers turning into grotesque laughter. The sound raised the hair on her arms, sending prickles of fear down her spine. Jess's decision loomed over her like a storm cloud threatening to break. Then, a new sound emerged from the tape, sharp, echoing, a child's voice singing a long-forgotten lullaby. It cut through her thoughts, twining with the urgency vibrating in the air. Stop! Max cried, his face twisted with confusion. Make it stop. She felt a wild mix of anger and compassion. Maybe it needs to play out. Play out? He echoed, stepping back as if she had just suggested they jump into the depths of hell. What does that even mean? Perhaps it's a way to see what we're really dealing with, she said. The words came out shakier than she intended, entwined with dread. The knocking grew more violent, nails scraping against wood, as if something was desperate to break through. I want to let them take you. Don't listen to the tape. Press stop. She fought against the flood of fear, against Max's pleading gaze. Another knock reverberated through the door, desperate and primal, and she felt the walls close in. Please, Jess. You're risking everything, but here was the crux. The only way to truly know was to confront it, to face the dark truths waiting to slip into their lives. She teetered on the decision, heart pounding faster than before. Maybe there are things we aren't meant to know, Max pleaded. Sudden warmth flooded through the room, creeping in with the shadows. The door shimmered, pulsing with life, rippling as if it were a living creature. Time felt suspended, a breath held in anticipation. Press play, the sinister laughter echoed, and her heart sank as she realized the choice had already been made. As Jess reached for the tape recorder, Max's scream shattered the air, and everything went black. What awaited her in the suffocating silence? Darkness swallowed Jess whole, her senses drowning in a heavy silence that pressed against her chest. It was claustrophobic. She couldn't feel Max beside her, the very air seemed to vibrate with an unsettling pulse. A cool draft whispered through the cracks of the room, brushing against her skin like the fingers of a long-lost soul. Jess blinked, trying to dispel the shadows that clung to her vision. The tape recorder glowed faintly, sensing her presence like a predator stalking its prey. She felt a compulsion to reach out and touch it, her fingers trembling as they hovered over the play button. Nothing made sense anymore, but dread wrapped around her heart like a vice. Max, she called quietly, her voice barely rising above a whisper. It felt wrong to break the silence, like disturbing something sacred. But there was no answer. Max, she forced out, panic bubbling underneath. The absence of his voice chilled her. Had the darkness claimed him too? The thought made her heart race, pounding in her ears. The red light on the recorder pulsed again, more urgently now. With a shaky exhale, Jess pressed play. The recording crackled, then filled the air with distorted sound. A child's giggle echoed, swirling ominously around her. It was innocent yet perverse, like a taunt that twisted her insides. In the background, the lullaby played softly, wrapping her in a shroud of ache and longing. And then, an unseen force lashed out, the laughter morphing into something cruel. Play, Jess, you must play. She clenched her jaw, wrestling against the tide of fear flowing through her. No. I want tea. But her voice wavered with uncertainty, and the recorder wouldn't relent. Each moment stretched like taut string ready to snap. Suddenly, the child's voice turned sharp. They are coming. They see you. Jess recoiled, eyes darting back to the door. She could feel them beyond that thin barrier, sharp breaths against the wood, ready to invade. The realization hit her, a truth so subtle yet profound. Whatever was coming didn't need to break the door. It had seeped in through the shadows, through her very thoughts. Jess. A voice, Max. The relief flooded her, but confusion followed. He sounded distant. Get away from the recorder. Please. Max's voice was joined by a chorus of whispers, swirling memories tugging at her mind, blending with echoes of laughter and screams. The child's song twisted into mocking taunts. You're too late. You'll join us soon. Stop. Jess screamed, her voice breaking through the chaos. With desperation, she lunged for the recorder to rip the tape out, but as her hands clasped the device, a sudden shift in the air sent a jolt of electricity through her. The shadows writhed, coiling around her like serpents, murmuring dark promises, and instantly, the laughter silenced, replaced by a single, chilling statement that coiled around her thoughts. You cannot escape the truth. The room shuddered, as if the very walls cringed from the weight of whatever nefarious secrets had been unleashed by her intervention. She could feel the foundation tremble, a response to the monstrous presence that now filled the air. Panic surged anew, and Jess spun to the door. Max. We need to go. Now. But he had fallen silent again, and the absence of his reassurance sent her heart plummeting. The shadows thickened, dark fingers creeping along the walls. The air buzzed with energy, vibrating unsettlingly as the darkness pressed in closer, almost suffocating. Somewhere in the gloom, she heard it, a soft plea, barely a whisper. You should have listened. And then, the door began to splinter, slow but deliberate, in tandem with the beating of her heart. Her breaths quickened, panic clawing at her throat. She wrestled with the tape, knowing full well what it meant to dig deeper into its secrets. But it was no longer about the recorder, it was about escape. Press play, Jess, the echoes taunted, mixing with her fears. A countdown was taking place, the rhythm syncopated with the cracks in the door. She threw herself against it, desperation fueling her body. Would she have time to free Max, to understand the impending doom? The door shuddered as whatever was on the other side made itself known. She braced for impact and froze as a chilling voice, dripping with malice, enveloped her ear. Welcome home. What awaited her in the dark abyss beyond the splintering door? The wood splintered further, each crack echoing like a death knell in the heavy silence. Jess pressed her back against the wall, heart racing, hands shaking. Panic surged through her, drowning out the whispers, but the dread didn't leave. It lingered maliciously, creeping under her skin. Max. Where are you? She shouted, clenching her teeth to keep fear from breaking her voice. She could almost feel the darkness responding, convulsing in anticipation, waiting for her to falter. Then, from the background of her confusion, the tape recorder's red light flashed again, casting an eerie glow that illuminated the encroaching shadows. That child's giggle twisted back into her mind, as if the darkness itself had claimed it. You must play, it echoed, piercing through the apparitions swirling in her thoughts. No. Jess screamed as she lunged for the recorder once again, but her instinct screamed to run, to flee the room, to find Max, to escape whatever wrath lay waiting beyond the door. But she felt trapped, a marionette caught on invisible strings. Suddenly, the door buckled violently, as if whatever lurked outside was angry it hadn't yet entered. With a last desperate gasp, she yanked the tape out, tossing it aside as if it burned her fingers. She couldn't let it control her, she wouldn't. And then, a chill swept through the room like a winter storm, freezing her in place. The whispers intensified, now a cacophony swirling around her, piercing her mind with a single chant, join us, Max. She called once more, the desperation clawing at her throat. She needed his voice, his presence. She couldn't be seized by those shadowy whispers alone. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. With the door shaking violently against whatever gripped it from the other side, she took bold steps toward the exit, ready to confront whatever awaited her. Yet, as she reached for the handle, the shadows coiled tighter around her feet, dragging her down like quicksand. Stay back. She shouted at the swirling darkness, as if sheer will could hold it at bay. But it only laughed, a sweet, sinister sound that filled the room, merging with the oppressive weight of fear and despair. Max, please. She cried out, desperation shattering her usual resolve. Where are you? The answer came in a gentle whisper, dripping with dread. I'm here, Jess, but you need to listen. His voice floated through the air, but it felt smothered, swallowed by the darkness. With a scream stuck in her throat, she pushed against the door. It creaked and groaned under her weight as if protesting against her escape. Suddenly, the door jerked open, flinging her to the ground. Jess gasped, scrambling to her feet as figures emerged from the darkness. Their forms wavered like smoke, limbs elongated, faces twisted in a macabre grinning. Each carried the echo of that haunting giggle, mocking her very presence, inviting her to join them in their dance of horrors. Jess turned and bolted down the corridor, her heart pounding against her ribs, footsteps echoing with urgency. Yet, as she ran, the air thickened and the walls began to close in, constricting, pulsing like a living entity intent on devouring her. She could feel them behind her, shadows with a mind of their own, creeping closer, breathing down her neck. Join us, they sang out, a chorus of lost souls reaching for her. Turning a corner, she skidded to a halt in front of an old, tarnished mirror hanging crookedly on the wall. Her reflection stared back, eyes wide with terror. But the image began to shift. The dark figures were no longer behind her. They flooded the mirror, grinning mouths opening in silent, eternal screams. In that moment, everything crashed down around her. The chilling truth hit hard and visceral. What if she had already joined them? What if she'd been playing all along, trapped in a cycle of torment created by the very darkness she tried to escape? And then, a soft, familiar whisper beckoned from deep within the mirror. You've come home, Jess. As the air crackled with an electric tension, Jess felt something pull at her, a force stronger than the fear. It was calling her into the depths, into the unknown. Could she fight it? A choice loomed just beyond her grasp, but before she could think further, the mirror shattered, jagged pieces flying like stars in the dark. Jess. Max's voice abruptly pierced through her mesmerized state, but it was back in the room, far away. Panic gripped her again as the pieces faded into shadowy tendrils, drawing her closer to the maddening whispers behind the reflective glass. Would she shatter with it, or would she find a way to reclaim her reality? Help me! She cried before the dark enveloped her entirely. What awaited her next? Jess felt the air shift around her as she tumbled into the depths of the void. It was as if gravity transformed into something malignant, tugging her deeper into that eerie blackness. The echoes of Max's voice faded, swallowed by the crushing silence. Panic clawed at her throat, she couldn't drown in darkness. Just as she thought she would go under, she fell back, landing hard on a cold stone floor. Light flickered like a dying bulb above her, casting strange shadows that twined around her legs. She pushed herself up, frantically scanning her surroundings. Everything looked warped, as if she had stepped into a nightmare. The walls were lined with mirrors, each holding grotesque images of herself. Distorted faces laughed back, mouths twisted into screams. And those same giggles, that same taunting laugh, slithered through the air, wrapping around her like barbed wire. Max! She yelled, searching desperately for him. Her voice came out fractured, just as broken as her thoughts. Where are you? Please. Her heart thudded in her chest. Jess darted toward one mirror, her breath hitching as familiar shadows reached out, fingertips brushing the surface like they craved connection. She staggered backward, sickening dread pooling in her stomach. What is this place? Before she could gather her thoughts, the floor trembled beneath her. A low growl resonated, reverberating through her bones. Something was coming. The ambience felt alive, bursting with malicious anticipation. Join us, it breathed again. The voices seeped into her, swirling like fog. She was losing herself, piece by piece. Then, a blinding flash of light erupted from one of the mirrors. It flashed once more, illuminating the chamber, revealing that she was not alone. Figures crowded in the corners, trapped like the reflections. Their eyes bore hunger, their expressions twisted in pain and madness. "Jess," one of them whispered, her voice a raspy wind. Jess squinted, feeling a gnawing recognition wasn't he that her old friend Claire. "Claire." Jess stepped forward, heart pounding. "What happened to you?" "No, don't come closer." Claire's face contorted in fear. "You have to get out. It's a trap. They'll claim you." "But Max." "I need to save him," she insisted, but shadows snaked around her ankles, holding her in place. "I can't let him be lost." "Stop. This isn't a choice you can make." Claire shouted, her voice rising with urgency. "They want you. It's a game." The other figures recited an ominous chant, their voices merging into a twisted harmony. "Play with us, play forever." Jess closed her eyes, drowning in the sound. If this was a game, what were the rules? Was Max in danger, or was he already part of this hell? She shook her head, fighting the haze inhaling her thoughts. She backed away toward the edge of the chamber. "Get back!" she cried, extending her arms as the shadows lunged. They shrieked, a cacophony of chaos, pulling at her very essence. Like a staff in an orchestra, she heard Max's voice again, clear and cutting. "Jess! Find the truth. Don't let them take you." Jess's eyes snapped open. Find the truth. What did that mean? With a surge of adrenaline, she spun around, determined to face that cursed mirror. She glanced at the murky images it held, each one a distorted piece of herself. The corners of the glass glistened with a force strong enough to pull her in. "You're not taking me!" she roared, remembering who she was, a survivor, not a victim. "I choose to fight." As she pressed forward, the air grew thick with tension, wrapping around her like a snake. Just as she reached the surface, she felt a warmth radiating through the darkness. Something was shifting, but would it be enough? In that moment, the screaming laughter of the shadows reached a fever pitch, a kaleidoscope of voices shrilling through the chamber, threatening to drown her. As her fingers grazed the mirror's edges, a sudden crack pierced through the cacophony. Would she shatter the game or succumb to the darkness? The unseen battle had begun. The crack echoed. It resonated in the cold air, a promise of release or doom. Jess stared at the mirror. That jagged line gaped wide, like a mouth ready to devour her whole. She leaned closer, her heart pounding, filling the oppressive silence with a primal rhythm. "Don't!" Claire's voice sliced through the haze, but it felt distant, like a whisper carried away by the wind. "You don't know what you're doing." More shadows joined the clamor, writhing and twirling, as if they were caught in an invisible dance. The laughter morphed into howls, mocking her desperation. Jess gritted her teeth, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I'll find the truth." With trembling hands, she pressed against the mirror's crack. The glass felt hot, pulsing, like a heartbeat. "Max!" She screamed again, the name a beacon through the dark. Suddenly, the shadows lunged. They twisted and coiled around her, tightening their grip. She wrenched her body free, kicking against the floor. The air grew cold, breath turned to fog. The echo of Claire's terrified plea clawed at her, yet she couldn't stop. "Max!" she roared, raging against the void. She could almost feel him within reach, drawing her near. Unexpectedly, one of the mirrors flickered and dimmed, revealing a scene that froze her in place. Max was standing in a dimly lit room, his face pale and lined with fear. Shadows whispered around him, flitting in and out of view, their voices slithering like serpents. "Jess! I can't hold on much longer." The sight twisted inside her. She lunged forward again, arms outstretched, desperate to pull him from the grasp of darkness that sought to drown him. But the shadows surged, yanking her back. The laughter turned frenzied, filling her ears with chaos. "You can't save him!" they shrieked, their voices merging into a cacophony that clawed at her sanity. Yes, already hours. Panic surged like a tidal wave. Jess felt herself teetering on the edge. What if they were right? What if this was her last chance? No. She screamed, her voice breaking. I want to let you take him. I can break free. The crack in the mirror widened. A blinding light spilled through it, illuminating the horrid faces of the trapped souls. They twisted and warped, all eyes glued to her, yearning for release. Fear gripped her heart. Each reflection, a plea for help, a warning, or perhaps a torment they had become. Help us. They whispered in unison, the sound like shards of glass scratching her mind. You can't keep running. You must face the truth. Jess hesitated. What was the truth? Was it her or Max she had to save? The entity behind her let out a low, growling hum that rattled her bones. Join us, or be claimed. The shadows hissed, their claws reaching for her like greedy hands. With one last surge of defiance, Jess swung her leg out, catching a shadow and pushing it backward. It screamed, unraveling like smoke in the wind. She turned, lunging at the crack wider still. I choose the truth. The mirror shattered, shards flying everywhere, each piece catching a glimmer of that eerie light. An overwhelming wind burst forth, hot and cold, swirling around her as she fell backward into the blinding radiance. For a fleeting moment, she felt weightless, suspended between two worlds. And then an anticipation, a thrill at the possibility of escape, but even in that moment of hope, an insidious laugh echoed around her, deep and foreboding. You may break the glass, Jess, but the game is far from over then. Darkness consumed her once again. What would wait beyond the mirror? Would the truth lead to salvation or her doom? Jess gasped as she tumbled through the blinding radiance. The kaleidoscope of colors swirled, painting her in a bizarre light that felt both alien and familiar. She hit the ground with a thud, rolling to her side, her heart racing. In the chaos, her breath formed quick, panicked clouds in the chill that replaced the brightness. Silence washed over her, heavy and smothering, like a thick fog rolling in after midnight. She looked around, seeing only darkness at first, then shapes began to materialize: walls, a ceiling, and a faint glimmer of something that could only be described as dust motes suspended in the air. Where am I? She whispered, the words trembling in her throat. The answer lay somewhere ahead, hidden in the folds of shadows thick enough to cut. She took a step, the ground cold beneath her feet. Jess stumbled, staggering into a wall, a rough surface, jagged and uninviting. Glancing to her left, she saw a door. It was slightly ajar, an invitation wrapped in foreboding. She pressed her ear against it, holding her breath. Was that breathing? Deep, labored, as if someone or something beyond was lingering in agony. Max! She yelled, unable to contain the desperate cry. Would he hear her? Did she even belong in this dark abyss? There was only silence, thick and suffocating. The weight of dread pulled on her shoulders as she backed away, glancing around the room. Shadows flickered in every corner, appearing like hungry wraiths. Claire's words crashed against her mind. You must face the truth. What truth? Looking around, Jess felt that the very walls could hear her thoughts, the mirrors that once held secrets now lurking in spectral corners of her psyche. Jess turned toward the door again. If she didn't find Max, these shadows would devour her. Each fiber of her being screamed to push through, to unearth what lay beyond. She reached for the handle, its cold metal biting into her palm. With a swift movement, she twisted it and shoved the door open. The sight made her stumble back, a room like an echo of her old life. A cluttered bedroom, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb. Photos hung crooked on the walls, the faces smiling yet just out of focus, distant memories. But where was Max? She stepped inside, the floor creaking beneath her feet. Shadowed corners burnt at her gaze, almost beckoning her to investigate. Max? She called again, her voice fragile. She approached the bed, sheets rumpled as if someone had just risen. It smelled faintly of cologne, but not his. The hairs on her arms stood up, then, out of the corner of her eye, movement. A figure lurking behind the wardrobe. An icy grip of fear coiled around Jess's heart. "Show yourself," she demanded, her breath hitching. The shadows writhed, spilling into a human shape. "You shouldn't be here." The voice was deep, echoing with twisted menace. It emerged into the light, and Jess's scream caught in her throat. That it was Max, but his eyes were hollow, a distant expression locked on her. His mouth moved, but the words were drowned by overwhelming whispers swirling in the shadows. "Help me," he mumbled. The shadows around him pulsed like a living thing, flickering with malevolence. Their laughter mixed with Max's strained call, forming a grotesque symphony that dug into Jess's mind. "No!" she shouted, rushing forward. "I'll get you out." But as she reached for him, the shadows surged forward, clawing at her with rage. They tightened around her, a spiraling grasp that threatened to pull her under. "You don't understand." Max's voice cracked, terror edging most of all. "It's a trap." Her breath quickened, panic spiraling. The shadows encased her, their cold breath wrapping tightly, suffocating. She felt the world tilt beneath her, drawing her down into a vortex of despair. "Jess!" A voice buzzed through the haze. A familiar cadence. Claire's voice. "Find the truth. Before it takes you both." In that moment of horror, Jess realized, saving Max meant unlocking the darkness within herself. Heart thundering, her resolve solidified. "I will not lose you," she shouted against the encroaching shadows. Determined to fight back, but what would she have to sacrifice? And then, a blinding flash illuminated the room, freezing everything in place for just a heartbeat. What lay hidden in the light? What would Jess have to face now? The blinding flash was gone, leaving a terrifying stillness. Jess blinked against the brightness, then gasped. She found herself standing at the threshold of another room, this one even darker, its corners shrouded in deeper shadows. An oppressive weight filled the air, a heaviness that tightened her chest. The shadows morphed, rolling like a sinister tide, teasing the edges of her vision. Her heart pounded, each beat a warning. "Max?" she called again, desperation clawing at her voice. She stepped forward, her feet whispering against the floorboards, a skeletal echo in the silence. A flicker of movement caught her eye. There, in the depths of the room, two glowing orbs pierced through the dark, a disembodied pair of eyes watching, assessing. Jess froze, fear snapping at her like a fraying wire. "Don't look at it," a voice hissed from somewhere above, jagged and screaming with urgency. It slashed through the quiet and inches from her ear, sending a jolt of dread racing down her spine. "Get away." Before she could move, the eyes shifted, widening and narrowing like a predator poised to strike. Jess spun around, racing back toward the door, but it slammed shut before she could reach it. The sound echoed, a feral growl filling the space. A cold sweat broke out on her forehead. "Stay with us!" A chorus of voices bubbled from the shadows, a symphony of torment. They slithered, entwining around her. "Join him forever! Stop!" she shouted, rage sparking her bravery. But their whispers wrapped around her mind, a thick fog choking her thoughts. She took a step back, squeezing her eyes shut. "No!" Jess gasped, clenching her fists. "You won't take me." When she opened her eyes, the figures emerged from the gloom, haggard faces twisted in agony, mourning their unending fates. Hands reached out, grasping for her, capturing glimpses of lives lost to darkness. Each figure spoke without words, their mouths twisting in an endless scream. "Jess!" The voice of Max burst forth from the tumult, fragmenting the sinister echoes. "Find the truth. You have to find the truth." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know what that means," she cried, desperation cracking her voice. "What do you want from me?" The shadows solidified, forming a grotesque hand that dragged her down into the abyss. Time warped, stretching every moment into eternity. In their grip, memories danced of laughter, of love, of the light that had once filled each day. Suddenly, she recalled the last thing Max had said before she fell. "It's a trap." The truth. The shadows must be feeding on their fears, their regrets. But how could she face her own when all they brought was dread? Jess focused, struggling against the shadows, the whispers, the hold tightening like chains around her limbs. She remembered Claire's words. It was time to confront what haunted her. Enough. She screamed, forcing her voice through the suffocating pressure. "I won't run away anymore." The shadows recoiled at her declaration, swirling backwards, rage and surprise fueling their movements. With each shouted truth, every pang of guilt and regret laid bare, the grip loosened. She could feel the weight lifting, but as the shadows hissed and retreated, something else began to emerge. The hollow eyes of Max transformed, widening to reveal turmoil. "Jess," he whispered, desperation lacing his tone. "Don't let it in. They'll use you to keep me here." Jess's heart raced anew, uncertainty clawing at her. Trust was a fragile thread, stretched thin. Could she risk letting go? Could she open herself up to the darkness once more, just to save him? In that very moment, the atmosphere shifted. A new presence grew, more malevolent and powerful than before. The shadows resettled, no longer revealing only lost souls but something far more sinister, a dark figure towering above her, its intentions blurred and ominous. What was this entity? What other horrifying truths would she have to unearth to save Max? As the figure loomed closer, Jess felt a knot tighten in her stomach, a chilling realization. To break the trap, she might have to sacrifice more than she ever anticipated. The ink-black shadows advanced, and she could feel the walls closing in. Would she dare push deeper into the abyss to find the truth? Could she conquer the darkness, or would she be pulled under into its suffocating depths? The oppressive darkness pressed against Jess like a weight, wrapping around her lungs, squeezing out every breath. The figure loomed closer, its essence swirling, a mass of shadows with no discernible face, anger etched into every crevice. "No more!" Jess shouted, her voice becoming a beacon, a flicker of electricity riding through her veins. She could feel the shadows recoil slightly, surprised at her defiance. "You don't own me. I won't be part of your sick game. Join us." The whispers coiled around her, each repetition saturating the air with dread. "You can't escape, you can't fight it." But in that moment, Jess chose to look beyond the shadows, beyond the fear. With each word of denial against the darkness, she felt strength surge through her core. She thought of Max, of his supposed coldness, and fear twisted into something deeper. She knew what she had to do. "Truth!" Jess screamed, voice piercing the silence. "The truth is, I won't let fear control my life anymore. I choose to break this cycle." The figures around her shrieked, a cacophony of the lost, their faces contorted in agony and rage. But Jess planted her feet firm, heart open and raw. She focused on Max's voice, the echo of his laughter from happier days before shadows coiled around them and stripped them of peace. "Find the truth, Jess." He had cried, and she felt it, the bond between them, sizzling like electricity, a warmth that started in her chest and spread outward. As if her determination became a weapon, light began to bleed through the shadows, illuminating the faces of the lost souls surrounding her. Their cries twisted into a haunting melody, echoing memories intertwined with hope. She remembered why she had fought all along. Love was a weapon, a shield against despair. The dark figure leaned closer, its form shifting unnaturally. "You'll regret this," it hissed, its voice more a growl than anything human. "No," Jess replied, shaking her head, tears brimming her eyes as she pressed forward. "The only regret is not fighting sooner." She took a bold step forward, fueled by every memory of love, laughter, and the glimmer of hope they once shared. "Max needs me. I'd risk everything for him." With each assertion of her truth, the shadows around her pulsed, like a living, breathing thing, then shattered. Light exploded, cascading around her, cutting through the deep haze of despair. Jess shielded her eyes, but the brilliance illuminated everything, the haunted faces around her, the depths of her own fears laid bare. "You're powerful." Claire's voice rang through the air, echoed by the chorus of spirits. "You have the strength to break free." And then, she saw him. Max stood on the other side, trapped but alive. The shadows swirled around him, but he locked eyes with her, warmth shining in his face. "Jess!" he shouted, his voice breaking through the encroaching fear, pulling her toward him. "Max!" she called back, her heart racing as she surged forward. Jess could feel the shadows protesting too late, thrashing against the piercing light. "Keep going," he urged, desperation clear in his eyes as the dark mass fought to reclaim him. "I won't leave you. Not again." She plunged toward him, breaking through the last remnants of the suffocating darkness. As their hands connected, they formed a bond so strong, it sent ripples through the shadows. Light erupted, seizing every dark essence, forcing them to retreat like a tide. "Hold on!" Jess shouted, pulling Max close, pressing her cheek against his. The warmth radiating between them felt like a pulse, a life force that pushed back against the shadows. "Together!" Max shouted, his voice steady, it steadied her resolve. He squeezed her hand, an anchor amidst the chaos. "Together!" Jess echoed, and the room erupted in a blinding flash, a final confrontation between love and despair. The shadows screamed, a cacophony that faded into whispers, dissolving into nothingness. The air cleared. The darkness evaporated like mist meeting sunlight, revealing a familiar landscape, their old living room, bathed in the soft glow of morning light. Panting, Jess and Max collapsed onto the floor, relief washing over them like a cleansing rain. "We did it," he murmured, his fingers entwined with hers. Jess met his gaze, the fears that had once clouded their lives now merely shadows in her mind. "No more games," she whispered. "No more secrets." As they embraced, the weight of the past began to lift, leaving room for hope and healing. They had waded through darkness, but love had delivered them to brighter shores, and somewhere, deep in the recess of her heart, Jess understood this would be but the first of many steps to rebuild. But for now, they were free. "Let us start anew," Max said softly, and Jess nodded, a smile breaking through the remnants of her fears. "Together," she affirmed. As they emerged from the shared terror, a gleam of a new beginning twinkled on the horizon, and the shadows faded behind them. "You've reached the end of this spine-chilling journey. Now, you need to subscribe immediately. Don't miss the exclusive stories waiting for you in the future. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and let the world know this was epic. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and everything you think about this ending. I want to hear it all. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this conclusion. Only true fans understand how important it is to support the channel through these actions. Your engagement is the heartbeat of this community. Let's keep the stories alive together.